Miss Sharon here from the Newcastle Public Library. Happy Fantastic Friday. Welcome to Dive into Nonfiction. And for this special day, we will start with a poem from The Holiday Ring, the book compiled by Adeline Corrigan, and we'll read Fireworks by James Reeves. They rise like sudden fiery flowers that burst upon the night, then fall to earth in burning showers of crimson, blue, and white. Like buds too wonderful to name, each miracle unfolds, and Catherine wheels begin to flame like whirling marigolds. Rockets and Roman candles make an orchard of the sky, whence magic trees their petals shake upon each gazing eye. Do you like to watch fireworks on the 4th of July? It's one of my favorite things to do. Perhaps they're set to music, some of the fireworks displays. The 1812 Overture, so cool. Okay, well, we're going to talk a little bit about Independence Day. This is an Acorn beginning nonfiction reader on different holidays and festivals, and this is by Rebecca Rissman. And a little bit about what is a holiday. A holiday is a special day. People celebrate holidays. Independence Day is a holiday, and it's celebrated in July. The story of Independence Day. In the 1600s, people from England sailed to America and they settled there. They lived in the 13 colonies. The colonies were groups of people that were ruled by the King of England. And you had Massachusetts colony in the north, New Hampshire and Massachusetts, New York and Connecticut, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and in the South, Georgia. So as you see, Maine was part of the Massachusetts colony. Vermont, another New England state, was made out of New Hampshire and New York, mostly New York. And look where the colonies ended. They didn't go into the Northwest Territories yet. There was just like part of Pennsylvania and part of New York, not the whole way to the Great Lakes like today. The king made the colonies pay taxes to England. The people in the colonies felt that this was not fair. No taxation without representation. No taxation without representation, they cried. The people in the colonies wanted to become free. They wanted to become a new country. The King of England did not want the colonies to become free. England and the colonies went to war in 1775. Right? The shot heard round the world, the Battle of Lexington and Concord. The colonists then wrote the Declaration of Independence. It said that the colonies would become a new country. The Declaration of Independence was finished on July 4th, 1776, and this was the very first Independence Day. The colonists won the Revolutionary War in 1781. The colonies became the United States of America in 1783, and all of the colonists then became Americans. How do we celebrate Independence Day? We mentioned fireworks. On Independence Day, people celebrate America. People watch parades. Maybe you live in a community where there are parades. Kids decorate their bicycles and wagons. People watch fireworks. And people give thanks for their freedom. And people fly the American flag on Independence Day. And the American flag is a symbol of freedom. And on the calendar, this is what it looks like, July 4th. Independence Day is July 4th. And then here's a picture glossary of the different terms. Can you see that? Because this is a nonfiction book, so colonies, groups of people that are ruled by another country. And independence means to be free. The king is a ruler of some countries, and war. War is a fight between different communities, two or more countries or groups. And that is Holidays and Festivals by Acorn and Independence Day. So some more nonfiction to dive into here at the library is 6 questions of American history. How did tea and taxes spark a revolution? And other questions about the Boston Tea Party. And this is by Linda Gondosh. And who were these protesters? Why would they risk angering the powerful British government? How did the British respond? Answer these questions and more. And how did tea and taxes spark a revolution? A fiction book, a little more on the Boston Tea Party and things that existed in Boston at this time. And it is fiction, it's a novel. It's one of my favorites, that's why I'm including it. Johnny Tremain by Esther Forbes. I love this book. This is a wonderful story about this time period. As you see, it has a medal here. Johnny Tremain won the Newbery Prize in 1943, so in the middle of the Second World War. Johnny Tremain, a book about the beginnings of the Sons of Liberty and the American War, and a young Johnny Tremain that's searching to find his identity and his place in this world. It's a wonderful story. Right in the middle of the Second World War, 1943, this won the Newbery. So Esther Forbes, check it out, Johnny Tremain. We talked about the Declaration of Independence, the words that made America, and this is illustrated and inscribed by Sam Fink. And this is very unique because it takes the different lines of the Declaration of Independence, it kind of breaks them down. And we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And the illustration says equal, equal, equal. You see, it's very cool. And let's see, you know, abuses, usurpations, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. So very cool. The Declaration of Independence by Sam Fink. Also, we spoke of the signers. It's the 56 stories behind the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This is by Dennis Brindle Fraden, and it tells the stories of the different signers. That breaks them down by the colony or state they're from, and it tells their name, and then it gives you their stories of what happened to them. And you know, Robert Morris, he was from Pennsylvania, he was the financier of the revolution. So a lot of these men were very educated, very wealthy gentlemen. Another one from Benjamin Rush was a physician, a leading physician of that time period. All will end well. All will end well. The signers. So check that out to find out more about the men who signed the Declaration of Independence. As we said, a very dangerous thing to do. Continuing on, we spoke about some of the women of the revolution, and you know, even there were kids not much older than some of you listening to this. This is about Sybil Ludington, her midnight ride. Okay, so what is very interesting about this book is that history is not always fair. Some stories are remembered and repeated, others are forgotten. Sometimes history remembers his story and forgets hers. In 1775, most Americans had become impatient with being a colony of Great Britain. They wanted their own government. They wanted to make laws and solve problems on their own. They wanted to be a free and independent nation, but Great Britain had no intention of letting its colony go. So, Henry Ludington was a farmer and a mill owner in Paterson, New York. and he had been chosen by General George Washington to be a leader of 400 soldiers. After months of fighting, Colonel Ludington and his men were given permission to return to their farms so they could plant their spring crops. On April 26, 1777, the soldiers were at home with their families. That Saturday evening, Colonel Ludington learned that the British troops had attacked his neighbors in Danbury, Connecticut. He needed someone who could round up his soldiers quickly so they could march to Connecticut and stop the British. It was a dangerous and difficult mission. Colonel Ludington needed someone who was brave and who was determined. And this is the story of Sybil Ludington's Midnight Ride. It is a true story. And how his daughter Sybil rode through the night, through the storms, in the dark, to alert the men that the British were coming and that they had invaded Danbury, Connecticut. So interesting. Sybil Ludington's story. Look her up. Also, Valley Forge. George Washington wintered his troops there. So this is a very, very interesting book by Richard Amon, and it's illustrated by Bill Farnsworth. The illustrations are very well done. There's timelines in here about the different battles. It starts with a prelude to Valley Forge, how they got to that place, and also talking about the army and all the situations they went through. Valley Forge was no camp out. It wasn't a rural picnic. They really had a lot of hardship, and there was a lot of sickness, and they didn't have adequate food or clothing. So it was basically how the men were inspired to keep fighting through this long, hard winter. This is a compilation, History of the American Revolution, Fight for Freedom, by Benson Bobrick. And I told you that we'd talk a little bit about some of the women. And we mentioned Abigail Adams the other day. And the illustrations in this are very unique. And we talked about Molly Pitcher. And it says, some women also actively participated in the fighting. One such woman was Molly Pitcher. Molly Pitcher was the nickname of Mary Ludwig Hayes, the wife of an artilleryman in the Continental Army. She earned the nickname Molly Pitcher for her service at the Battle of Monmouth Courthouse, that's in New Jersey, where, heedless of the risk to her life, she helped her husband fire his cannon and carried water in pitchers back and forth from the well for the thirsty troops. One soldier recalled, while in the act of reaching for a cartridge, a cannon from the enemy's shot passed directly between her legs without doing any other damage than carrying away all the lower part of her petticoat. Imagine that. Looking at it with apparent unconcern, she observed that it was lucky it did not pass a little higher, and she continued shooting. So it talked about how they were resourceful, how they stood in for men. This book, it talks about, you know, the clothes and the food and different encounters with the Native Americans. It goes through all the different battles and even some of the naval battles as well. So Fight for Freedom, very well done juvenile history of the American Revolution. And one of my favorites, did you ever think that George Washington was a spy master? George Washington's Spy Master, How the Americans Outspied the British and Won the Revolutionary War, by Thomas B. Ellen. And it says, there is nothing more necessary than good intelligence to frustrate a designing enemy, and nothing that requires greater pains to obtain. And that's George Washington. He knew how important it was to create a good spy network. And so, let's see. His only hope of beating the British is to wage an invisible war, a war of spies and deception. You're about to enter a shadowy world of double agents and covert operations, of codes and ciphers, a world so secret that even the spy master himself doesn't know the identities of some of his agents. You'll meet members of the elusive Culper Ring, uncover a mole in the Sons of Liberty, and see how invisible ink and even a clothesline were used to send secret messages if you follow the successes and failures of the Americans in their war of independence. So this is a very interesting book. So A Spy Must Die, as we talked about the signers of the Declaration of Independence. It was very dangerous to be a spy. It was treasonous behavior. So spies were shot or hung, no questions asked. So victory in the spy war, in which the spy master leads the British into a final trap and wins the war. So George Washington's Spy Master, check this one out. And other books on the American Revolution. I just gave you a little tiny taste here. So we hope you come down to the library. Have a lovely Friday and a wonderful, wonderful Independence Day. Be safe and enjoy yourself. And we hope to see you soon at the Newcastle Public Library. Goodbye.